right. So I've already recorded the intro at this point separately, so I don't mess it up. But I was hoping we could start with your origin, Kai. So where are you from? What were you into as a kid? Just those kinds of things.
Yeah, so born and raised in New York City. My dad is Chinese. He's from China. My mom is like Italian and Lebanese, and they met at like some sort of party in New York. Both my parents are artists. So my dad's like a musician, and my mom is she's in like theater business. And so growing up, art was really quite prevalent in my life. Whether it was music, whether it was theater, whether it was movies. But I was like, I guess like kind of in the opposite of the traditional stuff. I'd tell my parents that I wanted to do business, and they were like, no, you have to do that. Like kind of I guess like all children without in some way, shape, or form. So I mean, I had always wanted to sort of run my own company at one point, actually, since I was pretty young, I would say. What that company was changed throughout time. And then I spent probably like a window of time between 13 and 14 where I wanted to be an NFL quarterback. So that was
Sweet.
kind of what my time on. Had a pretty normal childhood, played video games, watched TV. And yeah, that was about it.
That's awesome. It's funny you say that. That is kind of opposite what you hear from a lot of people. Yeah. Most people want to be artists, and then their parents are like, no, you got to do business or healthcare. You're like, no, I want to do business. Wow, that's so interesting. Just hearing that a little bit about your origin, like, explains a lot about Pallet's brand. I feel like even something as simple as your all's profile avatars are very creative. Obviously, there's probably more to that than I even know. But
thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think definitely that sort of creative like DNA, I guess, has always been a part of the things that I like to do. Aesthetically, brand wise, I'm not like a professional in any of that type of stuff, but I want to have I like having that stuff sort of bleed into all the things that we do as a company.
For sure. So all right, what's Kai doing outside of work now, at least?
No, basically nothing, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, my average sort of daily schedule, I try to get into the gym by like 7:15 in the morning. I can't really go any earlier than that. Then I'll work from about like 8:30 to 8:30, and then go home, maybe play a couple of games of Apex Legends. That's been a game that I've been sort of playing recently. And then I'm in bed at that point. So not much time outside of work. I will say I'm a massive fantasy football fan. So now that football season's rolling around, like I'm going to start watching games every Sunday. I've got this like really like high stakes league with my high school friends. And so that's sort of like a tradition that we always do.
Sweet. I think you're a Knicks guy. So are you Giants or Jets?
No, so I'm weirdly a Detroit Lions fan. It's like one of the stranger like sporting ties that I have. Basically, my mom used to go to this conference in Detroit every Thanksgiving, and while I was just waiting around, she would like, oh, you should go to the Thanksgiving game at like Ford Field. And that was like, I think the first year that Matthew Stafford got drafted, and I sort of just like kind of fell into, just ended up really liking the team. And now that he's left LA, we'll see if like the fandom is still there. But yeah, I mean, I've been a Lions fan for the past like 8-9 years, basically.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like, that game is so special, the Thanksgiving game. And well, I empathize with you as a lifelong Bengals fan. So kind of perennial disappointment.
How do you feel about Joe Mixon this year? Is he going to finally have like a killer year? I'm looking at maybe drafting him in the second round.
I think he'll put up some stats for sure. If we talk about the success of him and the team, it's hard for me not to be a pessimist. But I'm hopeful for sure. So I want to go back a little bit to Oxford. It looked like you went to Oxford, and I wanted to ask what led you there, first of all, from New York City.
Yeah, I mean, so my mom is European, so she grew up in Europe. I've spent a lot of time there just with like grandparents and stuff like that. So when I was looking at deciding on a college, I knew I wanted to be in New York for my career. Like I knew I wanted to spend the bulk of my sort of 20s and 30s in New York. So I wanted to get out of New York specifically for college. And basically the only, was either sort of like stay in the Northeast, go to California, or like go to Europe. And I was kind of enticed by the idea of going to Europe. And then specifically, I really like the format of like Oxford classes. So it's not like these big, 500-person classes. Like your predominant like mode of education is like 2 students and 1 teacher just having a discussion about stuff. And so that was pretty interesting to me. Ended up going and had a great time for 3 years. But happy to be back in America.
Cool. And it looked like you studied economics. What kind of career did you want to pursue while you were in college?
So I think when I first got into college, I mean, I was very much interested in sort of tech already at that time. Econ, so econ was always fascinating to me because I feel like there's so many, it's just like the study of incentives, right? I'm sort of like a big kind of believer in like incentive design or general product thinking for anything really. I think it's just a great like sort of foundation to build upon. By the time I'd gotten to college, I was already sort of on this whole entire tech train. But prior to that, I wanted I wanted to have my own hedge fund at one point, and that's where I got into econ in the first place. And so, that's probably what led me to study econ. But like with Oxford, it's weird. You have to like apply for a very specific major, and you can't really take any classes outside of it. So you sort of apply with an exact major in mind. You interview for that specific major, and then you move from that point. And for me, econ was just the easiest choice.
Sure, that makes sense. I think in a previous interview you said like labor econ was a focus at one point. And that's kind of, what is that first of all, and is it as related to what you're doing at Pallet now as I think it might be?
Yeah, I mean it's semi-related. Like I won't like exaggerate too much. It's just basically a study of sort of the labor markets, kind of what the like, everything from like sort of like an econometric type lens, like how you can look at, how you can analyze like government job placing programs and job training programs, all the way down to like the very basic like supply and demand of the labor market and how that will reach on some sort of equilibrium for like wages and whatnot. So it really just looks at the labor market across a bunch of different spectrums and a bunch of different angles. And so that was something that I had a lot of fun with. But I wouldn't say it's been too helpful in the context of Pallet at the very least.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've mentioned Pallet a couple times. Can we just zoom out for a second and talk about how the idea for Pallet came up, what it is exactly, and just talk about its origin.
Yeah, totally. So I really came up out of like an initial frustration myself with looking for jobs. Like I found it to be like a very like tiring, and it almost felt like it was like 10 years behind any other product online, any other experience online at the very least. And so we really wanted to do something that was quite like different. I think what we found and what was interesting to us was that increasingly these like what we sort of like internally define as like digital centers of gravity were popping up everywhere. So people were hanging out in like Slack groups or reading newsletters or doing a boot camp of some sort. And there's all these like little watering holes online basically that people were doing in a professional context, which I thought should be really informative of what job search looks like for an individual person, right? Like, the old sort of paradigm online was you sort of build sites to be like destination sites, right? Like you'd have like one website to go look for books, one website to go find flights. I think one website to go find jobs. I think now online, there are still obviously a lot of these destination sites, but a lot of it is just like, this is where I spend my time. And it made sense to me that like the content you consume and the communities that you're a part of should directly inform sort of opportunities that you're looking at and sort of like different like career angles and stuff like that. And so plugging directly into those, into these communities like Waymarker, like Patrick McCormick's newsletter, to try to match those job opportunities with a given audience was kind of it was kind of interesting to us basically.
Yeah, good deal. That's perfect. Who's on the team? I know it's still fairly small. Like you don't have to name everyone, but kind of how big it is and where do they come from?
Yeah, so we are now, I want to say 12 full-time. So that's, there's basically the divide between like product engineering, design, and then like sales, marketing, operations, etc. There's 6 people on either side of that equation. I guess I'm sort of like in the middle, but yeah. So I mean, so we have actually like a founding team of 4, which is kind of I'd say like on the larger side of things, but not like overtly large. So met one of my co-founders in 2nd grade. We went to like lower school together. Then we met another co-founder in 9th grade. We went to high school together, and then finally Jake, our 3rd co-founder, met Jane Nail at Stanford in college. So there's been like this nice little like train of like a little like trail of life experiences starting from the 2nd grade that led up to this point.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you, because I know we actually have a lot of people in the community who are interested in starting their own businesses or even side gigs. What's the hardest part about being a founder and especially a CEO at this stage?
Yeah, so I think like when you're just starting, you just gotta like keep on. I think a lot of people struggle with like getting over that initial hump of like, I'm just gonna do this thing, and like it's just such a momentum driven game that like you've just always got to keep your feet churning, and you've always got to sort of stay heads down and keep on moving and stuff like that. So that was the biggest challenge when just starting, because everything is going to be wonky and everything's going to be janky when you're like, just beginning. I think by the time you get to this point, it really starts to transition a bit from like, I've got to do everything under the sun to sort of where are the most like high leverage places that I could spend time on, which is something that, I obviously haven't had to deal with in my life before, because I've either been like an intern or just, really early stage. And so figuring out kind of those high leverage places and how you can spend your time efficiently across, probably the 10 or 12 things that you have to get done. It's like an exercise in time management, an exercise in sort of prioritization. So that's where I think things become a little more tricky when you're, once you've got like a team and like a sort of full engine going.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess in a similar way, and to the extent you're comfortable sharing, what's the vision for Pallet? When I think about Pallet, I think really big. I think we all know it's more than a series of job listings, and so I'm interested to hear it from you. What's the goal here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that we talk about it internally is that what we want to build fundamentally is like an infrastructure layer that will power the next entire generation of recruiting businesses, right? Like we want to be that sort of base case building block that every recruiting business gets built on top of. And we see recruiting as a whole fundamentally transforming drastically in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Like what we always say is like, hey, we want to be the engine that powers 1 million different micro recruiting businesses rather than trying to build one single product to sort of capture it all. We have this sort of belief here that like recruiting is fundamentally like a services industry, and you can't really productize it. It's been attempted to be productized with like automatic candidate matching or interview assessment type technology, and none of those productizations have worked. The best thing we've gotten is a CRM, and already the greatest CRM of all time has been built, which is LinkedIn. So we really approach it from like, hey, we think that recruiting is a services industry. We think all of these different creators and communities are going to layer on services businesses on top of their core content mechanisms. And we want to be that sort of infrastructure to power the next generation of how we see it developing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's so on point. Like, I don't know, my opinion doesn't matter a whole ton, right? But like, I think it's so on point because people would, instead of an AI bot or something matching you with a job, like if I'm a product manager or I live in that space, I'm probably following Lenny's newsletter. And if he says that, hey, this job is a cool fit, like I'm much more likely to apply and probably more likely to get it.
Yeah.
At my full-time gig now, like I belong to a content marketing community, and I saw the role get posted by the founder of the agency. and I just reached out to her, and I was hired in like 7 days.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
so that's a niche community, and for you all to be the leader in helping creators and niche communities do that at scale, I think is just huge. It's not even chapter one, right? It's like it's the
Yeah.
intro. So
Yeah, it's very, very early days here. But we're excited about all the possibilities that's lie in front of us.
for sure. So the last question I ask everyone, and I hope it doesn't catch you off guard too bad, but it's what is the kindest thing someone has done for you at work or just work related? So could be a coworker, a boss, someone created an opportunity for you, like anything like that.
Yeah, I think I think that there is very little doubt in my mind that let me rephrase that. We definitely would not be where we are today if it weren't for like an entire series of kind acts. So I guess first and foremost was, after I graduated college, I didn't have any sort of network. I didn't know anyone in the industry. One guy named Omar Haroon, who was like a founder of a company, who was an Oxford grad as well, ended up basically like doing our whole pre-seed round for us, our whole first financing, just like literally like hand-holding me and introducing me to a bunch of his friends and sort of putting his neck out in the line and saying, hey, I promise you, like, this kid's good, like, just put in like a few $1,000s or whatever. And so that was what really got to lift us off the ground. Before then, we had some team members join us who like took reduced salaries until we could, like, I was literally like, hey, we can't really pay you much right now, but when we raise money, we will pay you. And they're still with us today, and they've been incredible. So that was, I guess, like another act of kindness. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really like anyone, whether it's like a teammate, whether it's an investor, you never forget the people that sort of give you a shot when like there was really no reason to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, I know you're busy. That's probably a massive understatement, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time, Kai, and more than that, just appreciate what you're building. I think you're enabling a ton of opportunity, not just for our members, but for us as creators. So it's a big deal. And I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
I appreciate that. And I'm excited for what the future holds, and like, let's go build this thing together.
Yeah, absolutely. Kai, I'll sign off with this. Where can people learn more about you?
I'm probably most active on Twitter right now. I don't tweet too often, but I'll tweet every couple of days. So I think my handle is hankai1998. So you can find me there, and you can find out all about Pallet there as well. We've got a blog too, but I think like Twitter is the top of funnel, and then you can find all the other stuff from that point.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks so much. Have a great weekend, and best of luck to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jimmy. Have a good one.
See ya. You too.